Drew Lynch had always believed that life could turn in an instant, but he never expected the turn to come the night before the biggest audition of his life. As he sat alone in his small hotel room in Los Angeles, staring at the single gold star sticker he had kept in his wallet for years, he felt the familiar tremble in his hands. The tremble that reminded him of everything he had lost, but also everything he was fighting to reclaim. The city outside buzzed with cars, dreams, and desperation. But inside the quiet room, Drew was battling a storm no one else could see. He had traveled across the country not just with a suitcase and hope, but with the weight of a past that had shaped him in ways he never anticipated. That belief carried him to the AGT stage, though he had nearly talked himself out of auditioning a dozen times. He knew millions of viewers would judge him. He thought of the gold star sticker. His mother had given it to him the day he finally returned home from months of speech therapy. "This star isn't for perfection," she said, placing it in his palm. "It's for trying again, even when it hurts." He carried it everywhere. That morning, as he made his way toward the audition building, Drew felt his heartbeat pounding in his throat. Contestants bustled around him, singers rehearsing scales, dancers stretching, magicians adjusting props. Drew had nothing but a small notepad in his hand and jokes scribbled in shaky handwriting. A young boy sitting with his mother noticed him standing alone and offered him a cheerful thumbs up. Drew couldn't help but smile. Even the smallest kindness reminded him that people could be gentle. As Drew approached the registration table, an unexpected tremor ran through his body, and for a moment, a woman behind him tapped his shoulder. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice calm and sincere. She was a dancer with sequins on her outfit that caught the light beautifully. Drew nodded shakily and whispered, "Just nerves." She smiled and squeezed his arm gently. "We're all terrified. That means we care." Her small gesture steadied him more than she knew. Finally, his group was called. Each step toward the stage felt heavier than the last, but the air backstage was electric. Contestants whispered prayers, adjusted costumes, and stretched fingers. Drew felt out of place, just a guy with a mic, jokes, and a shaky voice. A stage assistant handed him the microphone. "You ready?" she asked softly. Drew opened his mouth, and the word "yes" emerged in a fragmented breath, but she nodded like she heard a roar. Kindness again, small but powerful. The curtain parted, and the bright stage lights nearly blinded him. The audience stretched to the far corners of the auditorium, and the judges sat in front, iconic and intimidating. Simon leaned forward, assessing him with sharp eyes. Heidi gave him an encouraging smile. Sophia waved subtly, as if telling him to breathe. And Howie, famous for championing stand-up, comedians watched with a soft curiosity. Drew placed the mic to his lips, and for a moment, he said nothing. Not because he froze, but because he wanted to absorb everything: the energy, the expectation, the possibility. "What's your name?" Simon asked. Drew opened his mouth. "Didi Drew Elvinch," he answered, the stutter unmistakable and strong. A few audience members tilted their heads with sympathy. But Drew wasn't looking for sympathy. He wanted connection. He wanted humanity. Simon continued. "And what will you be doing for us?" Drew smiled nervously. "See comedy," he said. The audience chuckled, not unkindly, but surprised. The idea of a comedian with a speech impediment felt unexpected. Drew took a deep breath. This was the moment he had feared and prepared for his entire life. He began his set slowly, leaning into his stutter with gentle self-awareness, not mockery. And then something magical happened. His stutter, usually unpredictable, paced itself almost rhythmically, as if partnering with his comedy. Every pause became comedic timing. Every stumble became part of the punchline. Halfway through his performance, Drew shared a story about how someone once told him he'd never make it because comedy required a perfect voice. "They were alright," he said dramatically, then added, don't have a P-perfect voice. I have a P-particularly inconvenient one." The entire auditorium erupted. It was the kind of laughter that carried admiration in its echo. But then came the unexpected moment that shifted the entire energy of the room. Drew paused between jokes, his fingers trembling, and his eyes filled with emotion he hadn't meant to show. "Truth is," he said softly, "I used to be afraid to order a food in public. I couldn't finish a sentence without people finishing it for me. I thought my voice was broken, But I learned something. A broken voice can still tell a whole story. The silence that fell over the auditorium was profound. People leaned forward, hanging on to every word. In that brief, vulnerable moment, Drew wasn't performing anymore. He was connecting deeply, humanely, bravely, and kindness touched the room like a ripple. A teenager in the audience wiped tears. A father squeezed his daughter's hand. A speech therapist backstage whispered, "This is why I do what I do." The emotional shift was unexpected, stunning even to Drew. When he ended his set with a joke that wrapped wisdom and humor, the audience rose to their feet in a thunderous standing ovation. Drew stood there, stunned, overwhelmed, barely able to breathe. He had hoped for laughter, but never imagined this sea of support, this flood of humanity. Howie Mandel leaned forward, his eyes glossy. "Drew," he said gently, "you're not just a comedian. You're a reminder of what courage looks like." Simon nodded. "Comedy is about truth," he said, "and you deliver truth with heart and humor." Heidi added, "You made us laugh and feel deeply at the same time." "That's rare." Sophia beamed. "You're unforgettable." Then Howie stood up. "Drew," he said, his voice cracking slightly, "you deserve this." And with a sudden, dramatic movement, he struck the golden buzzer. The theater exploded with golden confetti, pouring down like a burst of stardust. Drew stared upward, feeling the flakes land on his face, sticking to his clothes, shimmering everywhere. Time felt suspended. He wasn't just a contestant anymore. He was someone whose story, struggle, and heart had touched millions. Drew brought his shaking hands to his mouth. Tears welled in his eyes, not just from joy, but from release. All the nights he doubted himself, all the moments he felt trapped by his voice, all the times he wished he could be someone else. They melted in the glow of the golden lights. He wasn't broken after all. He was brave. Backstage, something happened that Drew would never forget. The same young boy who had given him the thumbs up earlier ran to him and hugged him tightly. The boy's mother followed with tears streaming down her cheeks. "My son stutters too," she whispered. He thought he'd never be able to speak in front of people. But now, "You showed him he can." Drew knelt down to look the boy in the eyes. "Hey," he said gently, "your voice matters, even the wobbly parts." The boy nodded, hugging him again. Word of his audition spread like wildfire. Clips surfaced online. People shared them not just for his jokes, but for his authenticity. Communities of speech therapists, teachers, veterans, families with loved ones who stuttered, everyone embraced his story. Drew became a symbol of perseverance and vulnerability, not because he was flawless, but because he stood beautifully imperfect before the world and made them laugh. That night, Drew returned to his hotel room exhausted but floating with joy. He pulled the gold star sticker from his wallet and placed it on the bedside table. For the first time, he realized something profound. The gold star he had carried all these years had never been about luck. It was about choosing courage in the face of fear. And today, courage had answered back in golden confetti. He whispered, "Thank you, Mom," knowing she'd be watching from home with tears of pride. Lying in bed, he remembered how he once felt he had nothing to offer the world. Now he knew that everyone knew, no matter how different, how challenged, how broken, had something extraordinary inside them. Sometimes all it took was one act of bravery, one moment of connection, or one unexpected chance to show it. Drew closed his eyes, letting the memory of the cheering audience wash over him. He didn't know what the future would bring: more auditions, more challenges, more trembling hands, but one truth stayed with him. Compassion changes everything. A kind word, a small gesture, a moment of understanding it can change a life. It had changed his, and somewhere across the world, millions of strangers who had watched his audition felt the same spark of hope. His courage reminded them that no dream was too distant, no voice too broken, no challenge too heavy. Humanity, when given freely, had the power to lift, heal, and transform. Drew Lynch stepped out into a new day, carrying not just a golden buzzer moment, but the golden truth that kindness, bravery, and compassion make every broken voice worth hearing.